Hello and welcome to my Viva, Voce and Portmanteau. So the topic I'll be discussing today is educator-family communication, specifically through the use of a communication diary to support and promote trust and family partnerships. So the age group that I'm going to be focusing on is children aged 3 to 6 years. I will talk about communication a bit more in depth and then I'll unpack my portmanteau. So communication is fundamental for family partnerships. It's foundational for educators and families to communicate, because these two significant figures in children's life need to be on the same page, working in the best interest for the child. So educators and parents need to collaborate and focus on the child. Trust needs to be established to support consistency and continuity of care between school and home. Ways that the educator can do this is by creating a welcoming environment for the children and the families. Things that they can be doing are welcoming families and children at the door, greeting them, asking how their day was, ensuring that they know all the parents' names. This helps them feel valued, respected. The Australian Children's Educator and Care Quality have a national quality standard, NQS 6, that promotes the collaborative partnerships, shared communication, trust and involvement in child's education and care. Educators need to uphold this standard. Things that they can be doing is building relationships with parents and children, engaging in conversation, allowing parents to be involved in the child's schooling experience, letting them come in, share learning centres, be involved in decision making, let them give you feedback. Let them come in and see the child's work. Let them do things like volunteer and come in for the morning, or read a book to the class, things like that. Another thing is allowing families to bring culture and diversity into the classroom. Very important for children and educators to respect all culture, make sure that there's a sense of belonging within communities. And it's the educator's responsibility to be respectful and inclusive of other people's culture and norms. Another important thing is educators and families to be on the same page about things like routines and expectations. The child needs to have consistency with these things, because they need to know how to behave and things that are appropriate in each setting. And if they're not on the same page about things, then that's going to confuse the child and they'll end up acting out. So the educator can provide supportive strategies to families to support this practice. How an educator can be a good communicator. So body language, that's very important. They need to have their full attention on the parents. Eye contact, that needs to be established. That shows that they have respect for the person and genuinely care about what the concern is. They need to make sure that they clarify and restate what the family is saying to make sure there's no confusion and they're both on the same page. Making sure that they're not judgmental or criticising the family, because they won't feel comfortable raising these concerns. And things like making sure using respectful language and not blaming families, because if you're blaming families, that's not going to establish trust. You won't be able to form a partnership if you don't handle the situation appropriately. You need to make sure that you reiterate no one is at fault and that they can handle the situation together. Making sure that families feel safe to share these concerns, and things like adapting the conversation to meet families' needs or to their ability to handle the situation, and using things like translators for ESL families, visual cues and things for those that are non-verbal or have special needs and things, and simplified language for a lot of these things. So some benefits of partnership are listed here. It ensures that there's strong relationships between the family and the educator, promotes the sense of belonging, safety and security for the child. It supports continuity of care and consistency between the home environment and the school. Encourages teamwork between educators and family and make sure they're on the same page with what's going on and with their child and the development and well-being. Allows them to feel comfortable raising concerns. Families get to feel involved in the child's life, respected and valued. Educators can gain feedback and make sure that they are communicating openly. This also supports child's positive behaviour. So this is a very effective tool as it opens the door for open, honest communication. It is time effective because there's not a lot of time during the day to speak about concerns, but families also might feel more comfortable writing concerns down, which is okay. It supports sharing of information, it helps break down barriers of communication, promotes inclusivity, encourages ongoing partnerships, and it allows for clear and accessible communication with those visual components like symbols, 1 to 2 worded phrases and things like that. So I'm going to head on to my Portmanteau. So the overview of it, I've got a communication diary, a pamphlet or instructional guide for families on how to use it, and for educators on the effective use. So first one, so for families, it just tells them what it is. It lets them stay updated on things that are happening at school, and the why, promotes consistency, continuity of care, how to use it so they can raise concerns, ask questions, things like that, what the educator will do and things that will be included. So all the visual components and the little descriptions up the top. There is also a instructional guide for educators so that they know how to use it in an effective way, what it is, tips on how to use it and what they should include, the why behind it and the benefits. I probably should have included what I did on the other page, what may be included, all of these bits, but I just left on this one. But this also lets families know what to expect and the visual of it, because some people might not know what a communication diary is. So the communication diary, I hope you can see this, but the child can make it their own by putting stickers on it, drawing. The educator's name will go at the top, the child's year level, if they're in kindy, pre-primary or year 1, and the child's name. So the first page, I have a little about me part, some questions about the child and their behaviour or things about home that the educator would know, and there's a little space for the child to draw a picture of their family. I've got a weekly overview for the families, so things that are coming up during the week, things like show and tell, making sure they're prepared, things like science, library, sport, making sure they have their library bag, their sport uniform, appropriate footwear, things like that. And I have done two example entries, but I'll show you this one. So I have the little visual symbols under each bit. So I've got a mood part, how the child was feeling during the day. The educator will try and do this daily, but sometimes that might not happen. So maybe once a week, which is fine. Just showing the family how their child was during the week. They've got meals, what they had for crumbs and sip, lunch and recess, toileting, which only really relates to kindy or daycare, but just a little tick or cross for accidents, what they learnt and little learning experiences during the week, social interactions, highlight of the day, something that they did really well or that the child was proud of, incidents, things that should be documented and let the parents know, or if the child got hurt, what they did, and a little section for the notes and concerns for both educators and families. There's another one there. So how this links to the EYLF. So this links to the EYLF as it upholds the values of the early years learning framework, as it promotes partnerships and inclusivity. It aims to bring educators and families together and work collaboratively and find an effective way to communicate and address concerns. The EYLF centres on child development and wellbeing, and this tool underpins these elements and lets families have a little insight into what the child is doing during the day at school. That is the end of my Viva, Voce and Portmanteau. Thank you for listening.